Hey, what's up everybody? Let's talk about some ways we can protect our dragon fruit cuttings and plants from frost or cold weather. Now you can see I live in Southern California, and in our unheated greenhouse I have many rooted cuttings and grafts over here that are doing great. Now some still have growth, some kind of act more dormant, like succulents I guess you could say, and don't really do much other than root. But it really depends on heat and the temperature in here. So we've had some lows of 39 degrees recently, and everything does fine in here. Last year we had a low of 29 for a short duration, and everything did well in here also. So you can see I kind of fill it to the gills with tropicals and things like that. And you can see over here, this is where I keep my more sensitive, unrooted cuttings, Selenocereus hybrids, seedlings, and some new grafts. And notice that I keep the soil much more dry over here. So the key is, if you're gonna have cuttings and try to root them in Southern California's winter, is keep them indoors. When it gets cold, I'd say below 40 degrees. And you could use a garage, your house, a shed. Just keep them safe from the colder temperature, especially if it's a cold, dry, wet wind. So if you overwater them, you will likely rot the cuttings or get rust. So definitely treat them differently during this cold months in Southern California. And if you want to know, I water the seedlings pretty much as normal, and everything else I usually water the flesh once a week, maybe twice a week, depending on how warm it gets here in the daytime. So again, that is part of my strategy. Let's go outside now and talk about some bigger plants that I cannot move. So as you can see, I can't move these mature plants, and I'm probably not going to be able to protect them from cold weather, and that's okay. Mature rooted plants, they tend to do fine down to 33 degrees. Now there is differences in varieties, like Paul Thompson seedlings and things like that. I would say do fine till about 33 degrees in Southern California, and they start to get a bit of damage. But Selenocereus, like yellow-skinned Polora or a Megalanthus or Selenocereus varieties, they start to get a bit of damage at about 39 degrees Fahrenheit. So you may want to give them some protection. I'll show you how to do that coming up. But what you want to do also is water them much less. I've turned off the irrigation. I let the rain water these plants, and they do fine. And if there is going to be some really cold weather, like say a cold Santa Ana, what I do is I water the soil really well before that cold snap. That will help by a few more degrees for your plants. And I know it sounds kind of strange, but that's what Paul Thompson recommends in his book. And let me go show you some more things that he recommends in his book about cold weather and dragon fruit. So as you can see, I like to place some of my favorite varieties in a spot in the yard where they're going to get the first sunlight in the morning and some protection in the afternoon. So that also helps with things like this Asunta 4 here in cold weather, because it's going to warm up really quickly, so it shouldn't get damaged from a cold snap. Now here's what I learned from Paul Thompson's book Pitaya on this topic. And you can see he writes how Hass avocados are a good guide for growing dragon fruit, and he describes that cold, dry wind versus the cold, wet wind. In addition, he describes the frost damage as really similar to sunburn, but the core will get destroyed and that rot will set in and the plant will have to be cut out. Now, different varieties do need different protection. You can see I have a Hass avocado here, and it's protecting our Maui dragon variety. Now, this plant got damaged from too much sun last year, so I wasted a whole season, had to cut out the rot, and then now it's getting this protection from the afternoon sunlight in the summer. It's also getting that nice warm sunlight in the mornings and some protection from the wind as well. So I have it right next to a Hass avocado, and it seems to be doing much better this season. So let's go talk about some things I do to protect my yellow Polora and my yellow skin varieties. So here is my giant yellow Polora, It's a Selenocereus megalanthus variety of dragon fruit, and it's doing great. Now hopefully you saw our video last season where this plant, I covered it a few times with a tarp and incandescent Christmas lights that I lit up, and I did that whenever the weather got below 39 degrees Fahrenheit. I had to do it about 4 or 5 times last year, and this plant had 0 damage, which is awesome. So that's gonna be my strategy again this season. I'm gonna do the same thing. But as you can see here, this lovely variety I grow in the soil. It's not grafted, and it is a bit of a slow grower in the past year or so that I've had it. So hopefully next season it's gonna pick up its growth, but you can see it's growing right now, and it has 0 damage so far. So if it gets below 39 degrees, I'm gonna cover it with that tarp and use those Christmas lights. All right, let's go show you some damage from last season's frost. So here it is. This is what happens to some Nicaraguan varieties especially. This is Sabra, or Sabra some people call it. But Lisa, Sabra, they're very similar, and this is what happens to their stem. Especially even if they're happy plants, it just they've split open and exposed the core. And in the past with Lisa, I cut it up and had to reroot them all, but I left the Sabra. And I'm glad I did, because I've seen some really mature Lisa plants and they do fine. They recover from this. They kind of weep and eventually heal. The wound will heal in time. So that is something that you can be concerned with. Some people fill it with even like roofing tar, but I've seen some old school growers and some old mature plants like this, and they were fine. They did well, they produced well, so I'm just gonna leave this alone and only be concerned if there's a lack of new growth or the plant thins out. In other words, it should stay plump. So that can happen from cold weather in Southern California. All right, let me go show you one more mature plant and how quick they can recover from damage. So here's Dark Star, and you can see it's had a wonderful season of growth. It's gonna produce some fruit next year, but it actually had some severe damage this past winter here on one of my grafts that I left out in the cold. So you can see here's the graft, and it exposed the core. And I was gonna remove it, but I decided to leave it alone. And it's bounced back, luckily, and it grew a very, very long 2-sided branch that continued to grow all season. Topped the trellis, believe it or not. Went straight up and folded over. So it's right here. And then became 3-sided. So super cool. Look at how large this one branch is from that little graft, despite having the core exposed. So really amazing resiliency of these plants, and just because the core is exposed doesn't mean that it's going to be ruined. You just need to track the growth and make sure that the new growth is vigorous, and hopefully in time this will callus over more, but it's doing great, so I'm just going to let it be. So there you go. I hope this helps with some strategies and some of my experiences growing dragon fruit in Southern California, Zone 9B, and dealing with some cold weather. So give us a like and a subscribe. Have yourself a wonderful day, and thanks for watching. Take care.